It's back to school time. The backpack is ready. The school supplies are bought. The new shoes are sitting by the door. The first day outfit is already picked out. Everyone's fresh out of the barber or salon. Maybe you've already taken the first day pictures in your head. From the outside, it looks like everything is ready. But what time is everybody going to bed? Who's responsible for waking up in the morning? How are assignments going to be tracked? What happens to the phone at night? And when school, sports, band, clubs, work, tutoring, and everything else starts moving at the same time, how is everybody going to know where they're supposed to be? Because buying the backpack is one thing, but building a system that helps the scholar actually manage the school year is something completely different. Back to school preparation is bigger than what's inside the backpack. It starts with what has been established at home. And that's exactly what we're getting into in today's episode. Welcome to Raising Scholars, a podcast dedicated to developing scholars by building discipline, habits, skills, and lifelong growth. We define a scholar as someone who is actively trying to grow by educating themselves and developing the habits, discipline, and skills needed for life. I'm Terrell Scriber, and in today's episode, we're talking about how back to school starts at home. Now, if you've been listening since episode 1, you can probably see how these first few episodes are starting to connect. In episode 1, we defined what a scholar is. In episode 2, we introduced the 6 pillars of raising scholars. And in episode 3, we talked about preparing children for adulthood, not just school. And we introduced the progressive responsibility model. Model, teach, guide, monitor, own, and contribute. Now we're going to take those ideas and apply them to something families are dealing with right now, going back to school. Because if we want scholars to develop better discipline, habits, organization, responsibility, and ownership, one of the best places to practice all of that is in the systems we build around the school year. Now, this episode isn't about creating a perfect household. It isn't about every family waking up at the same time, using the same calendar, eating the same thing for breakfast, and having children who never forget anything. That's not realistic. The goal is to build a system that works for your family, something that's clear enough to follow, flexible enough to adjust, and structured enough to help the scholar become more responsible over time. So let's get into the first main idea. The first main idea is that the school year starts before the first school day. The first morning of school should not be the first time your family finds out whether the school year system actually works. That doesn't mean you need to run a military rehearsal 2 weeks before school starts, but these basic questions should probably have answers. What time are we waking up? What time do we need to leave? How are we getting to school? What needs to be ready the night before? Where do the backpacks go when they come back from school? Where does all the sports equipment go? Who is responsible for making sure the important things are ready? Because there's a difference between being reactive and being intentional. So the reactive approach is this. We'll figure it out once school starts. Now, the intentional approach is this. Before school starts, let's decide how we want this to work. And again, I'm not saying that every plan is going to work perfectly. It probably won't. You may build a routine and realize on day 3 that it makes absolutely no sense to do. That's okay. All you have to do is adjust it. The purpose of preparation isn't to predict every possible problem. That was a lot of P's. But it can reduce the preventable problems. For example, if the bus comes at 7:10 in the morning, 7:08 probably isn't the best time to discover that nobody knows where the student ID is. If football practice gets out late on Tuesdays, that probably affects dinner, homework, shower time, and bedtime. If one child has to leave the house at, say, 6:45 in the morning, and another doesn't leave until 7:30, they may not need the exact same morning routine. That's why families need a system that fits their actual lives. As an educator, I've seen the beginning of the school year from the other side too. You'll see students come into school exhausted. Some are missing materials. Some don't know what bus they're riding on. Some are already struggling to keep up with where assignments are actually posted. And that doesn't automatically mean those students are lazy. It doesn't automatically mean the family doesn't care. Sometimes everybody is simply going through a transition. A new school year means new schedules, new expectations, new transportation, new teachers, new activities, and sometimes a completely different daily rhythm. Preparation can't eliminate all of that, but it can reduce some of the unnecessary friction. The system should be established before the system is needed. And once we've established that the school year actually starts before day one, the next question is, what are the expectations? That brings us to the second main idea. The second main idea is that expectations should be discussed before problems happen. A lot of family rules get created in the middle of an argument. The grade comes home. The phone has been out too late. Somebody missed practice. Homework didn't get done. A responsibility around the house was ignored. And then everybody's frustrated. And that's when we try to create an expectation. That's usually one of the hardest times to teach it. If there are things that matter during the school year, talk about them before everybody is upset. What does academic effort look like in your house? What are the expectations for attendance? What happens with devices during homework time? What are the school night expectations for phones, gaming, or social media? If a scholar is involved in football, basketball, band, a club, a job, church, or something else, what responsibilities still have to be taken care of? What responsibilities at home still exist during the school year? And here's something else I think is important. An expectation should be clear. If you tell a young person, I expect you to do better this year, what does better mean? Does that mean all A's? Does that mean turn in every assignment? Does that mean ask for help when you need it? Does it mean attend tutorials? Does that mean give strong effort? We need to be able to explain what the expectation actually is. And when appropriate, explain why it matters. That doesn't mean children have to agree with every rule before the rule exists. Parents are still parents. But understanding the reason behind the expectation can help a scholar connect the rule to a larger purpose. Devices are a good example. Instead of waiting until the first week of school when you realize your child has been on the phone until 1 o'clock in the morning, talk about it before school starts. Maybe the family decides there's a media cutoff time. Maybe the phone automatically goes on the do not disturb mode at a certain time. Maybe devices stay outside of the bedroom. Maybe your family uses a charging station, and more options can be created. There isn't one single device system that every household has to follow. The point is, what is the expectation, and does everybody understand it? Research does show a consistent relationship between heavier screen exposure and later or shorter sleep, particularly among children and adolescents. But that doesn't mean one specific phone rule is scientifically guaranteed to fix sleep. The practical goal here is to create boundaries that fit the household and support the routine. Expectations are easier to teach before the conflict than during the conflict. And once those expectations are clear, we need routines to help turn those expectations into everyday behavior. Because motivation isn't going to carry us through the entire school year. That brings us to main idea number 3. The third main idea is that we need to build basic routines before the motivation wears off. The beginning of the school year is exciting. There's new teachers, new classes, new clothes, new school supplies, new schedules that may or may not need to be changed, and maybe even a new campus or a new sport. There's a certain energy around the beginning of the school year, but that newness eventually wears off. By October, the brand new backpack is just another backpack, but the system still has to work. So the purpose of the routine isn't perfection. The purpose is consistency with flexibility. There are 3 routines I want families to think about. The first is the sleep, wake, reset. The second is the evening reset. And the third is the morning launch. Let's start with sleep. If your scholar has been going to bed at midnight and waking up at 10 in the morning or later during the summer, the night before school probably isn't the best time to suddenly say, all right, Tonight you're going to bed at 9 and waking up at 6. That may not go over very well. As school gets closer, families can gradually move toward the school night schedule. The American Academy of Sleep Medicine has suggested gradual adjustments, including moving bedtime and wake time earlier in small increments, such as around 15 minutes. That doesn't mean 15 minutes is some type of universal prescription that every family has to follow. It's simply an example of making the transition gradually instead of trying to completely change the schedule in one night. And this is where real family circumstances matter. Work schedules matter. Transportation matters. Activities matter. Disability and health needs matter. Different children may need different levels of support. The principle is simple, though. Start moving towards the school schedule before the school schedule is required. The second routine is the evening reset. The question here is, what can we prepare tonight so tomorrow morning requires less scrambling? Before bed, take a few minutes to look at tomorrow. What's on the schedule? What's in your planner? What needs to go in the backpack? Is there a test tomorrow? Is there something due? Does a scholar need football equipment, band equipment, gym clothes, a permission slip? Signed, of course. Does a required device need to be charged? Has transportation been confirmed? Maybe clothing gets laid out the night before. Maybe it doesn't. Again, every household doesn't need the same routine. But the concept is this: prepare tomorrow before tomorrow gets here. And this is one place where a planner can be extremely useful. Planner shouldn't just be something the school gives to a student and the student throws into the bottom of their backpack. The scholar can check it during the evening reset. What's due tomorrow? What comes later this week? What do I need to bring? What needs attention tonight? The planner becomes part of the preparation system. Tomorrow shouldn't begin with everybody trying to remember everything from scratch. The third routine is the morning launch. This is the repeatable sequence from waking up to leaving the house. Again, it doesn't have to look the same for every family. Maybe the sequence is wake up, get dressed, take care of hygiene, eat, do a final materials check, and then leave. Maybe an alarm helps with this. Maybe a checklist helps. Maybe backpacks always go by the door. I know mine does. Maybe shoes have a designated place. Maybe sports equipment stays in one part of the house. These things sound small, but small, repeatable systems can reduce a lot of unnecessary searching and repeated reminders. Because one of the long-term goals should be reducing how much parents have to say this: get up, go brush your teeth, where are your shoes at? Get your backpack on. Did you put your homework in there? Where's your water bottle? Come on, we're late. Every single morning. Now, depending on the age of the scholar, some prompting may still be necessary. That's fine. But over time, the scholar should be learning the sequence. And this connects directly to our last episode, episode 3. We're moving from adult management towards scholar ownership. Now imagine a family with 3 children. One is in elementary school, one's in middle school, and one's in high school. The high school student has football practice. The middle school student has band. The elementary student needs more parent support in the morning. One parent has to be at work early. Maybe another parent handles afternoon transportation. Or maybe it's one parent handling everything. The family probably doesn't need one identical routine for everybody. They need a family system that recognizes the differences. That's why the goal isn't to just copy someone else's perfect routine from social media. The goal is building one that works for your household. And routines are only part of the system. Everybody also needs access to the information. And that brings us to the fourth main idea. The fourth main idea is that communication is part of the back-to-school system. Sometimes families don't have a motivation problem. They have an information problem. One parent got the email, the other parent didn't see it. The scholar heard about the deadline in class, but forgot to say anything. The practice schedule changed, the transportation plan changed, the assignment is posted in one system, The activity information is somewhere else, and now everybody is surprised. That's why the family needs some type of dependable information system. I call it the Family Logistics Hub. That sounds fancy, but it doesn't have to be. It may be a shared digital calendar. It may be a paper calendar. It may be a whiteboard. It may be the school portal plus a calendar. It may be some type of combination of any of those examples. The best system isn't necessarily the most technologically advanced one. The best system is the one your family will actually use. Now, I also want to make an important distinction between the family calendar and the scholar's planner. They work together, but they're not exactly the same thing. The family calendar may say football practice Tuesday at 5:30, but the scholar's planner may say math assignment due Wednesday, study for the history quiz Thursday, permission form due Friday. The family system helps everybody understand shared logistics. The planner helps the scholar manage individual academic responsibilities. And then I would recommend some type of short family check-in. This doesn't have to become a 2-hour meeting where everybody pulls out charts and PowerPoints. It can be 5 or 10 minutes. What's happening this week? Any major assignments? Any games? What about practices? Are there any transportation changes? Does anybody need help with something? The purpose is simply making sure important information is moving before it becomes a problem. And the scholar has a responsibility in this too. If something is starting to go wrong, speak up early. If you don't understand an assignment, say something. If the schedule is overwhelming, say something. If you need transportation, don't mention it 10 minutes before you need to leave if you've known about it for the past 3 days. If you need academic help, ask before the problem becomes so large that there are few options. Early communication gives families more options. And that brings us to the fifth and final main idea. Because ultimately, all these systems should be moving towards one thing: greater scholar ownership. The fifth and final main idea is that back-to-school preparation should build scholar ownership. Parents should prepare with the scholar, not simply for the scholar. And I want to bring back the progressive responsibility model from episode 3. Model, teach, guide, monitor, own, and contribute. We don't need to reteach the whole framework today, but we should use it. Because the goal isn't for the parent to become more efficient at remembering everything for the scholar. The goal of the back-to-school system is not to make the parent better at managing school. The goal is to gradually make the scholar better at managing themselves. So think about the responsibilities surrounding school. Who sets the alarm? Who makes sure the backpack is packed? Who checks whether the correct materials are there? Who fills out the planner? Who checks the planner? Who tracks assignments? Who prepares the football equipment or the band instrument? Who contacts the teacher when there's an ordinary question? Who speaks up when they need help? Depending on age, development, disability, experience, and the responsibility itself, the answer is going to be different. But the answer shouldn't automatically be the parent handles everything forever. Let's use the planner for an example. Maybe the scholar has never used one effectively. So first, somebody has to model it. You show them how to use a calendar or how to keep up with responsibilities. Then you teach them what belongs in the planner: assignments, tests, projects, deadlines, activities, before and after school, of course, and things they need to remember. Then you guide them. Maybe you sit down together for a few minutes and ask, "What did you put in your planner today?" Eventually, you move to monitoring. The scholar manages it. You may occasionally ask whether they've checked it. Then the scholar owns it. They're using the planner because it helps them, not because somebody is standing over them forcing them to fill it out. And maybe eventually they can help a younger sibling learn how to use one as well. And that would be the contribute stage. A planner only works if the scholar develops the habit of putting information into it and checking it again. A planner sitting at the bottom of a backpack is not a system. The same thing can happen with packing the backpack. When the child is younger, the parent may pack it. Then you pack it together. Then the scholar packs it and the parent checks. Eventually, the scholar owns packing the backpack. That is progressive responsibility. And again, this has to be adapted. A scholar with ADHD or executive function challenges may need a visual checklist for longer. Another scholar may need alarms. Another scholar may need more adult monitoring. That doesn't lower the expectation that we want to develop. It changes the support we use to help them develop it. High expectations and support can exist at the same time. And that's really what this whole episode is about. Not building a perfect system, but building a system that helps the scholar gradually take more responsibility. For parents, your action step is to hold one back-to-school family meeting. And again, it doesn't need to be some huge formal meeting. Sit down and answer a few basic questions. What are our school year expectations? What's our sleep and wake-up plan? What are we doing the night before? What does the morning look like? How are we tracking schedules and school information? What are the device expectations? And most importantly, what does the scholar own? Then I want parents to ask this question. What did we repeatedly argue about or scramble to fix last school year that we can address before school starts this year? Maybe every morning somebody was looking for their shoes. Maybe assignments were constantly forgotten. Maybe nobody knew about practice changes. Maybe bedtime became an argument every night. Maybe the backpack was never packed. Whatever it was, identify it and ask, can we build a system around that problem before it comes back? For scholars, I want you to ask, what school responsibility am I ready to manage with less adult prompting this year? Maybe it's setting your own alarm. Maybe it's packing your backpack. Maybe it's your planner and effectively using it. Maybe it's tracking your assignments. Maybe it's making sure your practice equipment is ready. Maybe it's communicating with your teacher when you need help. Pick one. Then ask yourself, what preventable source of stress from last year can I build a system around this year? Maybe last year you kept forgetting assignments. Okay. Your system might become write it in the planner, check the school portal, review the planner during the evening reset. Now you're not relying on memory alone. That's what systems do. For educators and mentors, remember that the first couple of weeks of school involve more than academics. Students are adjusting to new schedules, new transportation, different sleep patterns, different activities, and new expectations. Some students may be navigating multiple households. Some may have work responsibilities already. Some may be taking care of their siblings. And some may be learning entirely new systems altogether. So make expectations clear. Make it easy for scholars to understand where information lives. Teach them how to ask questions. Teach them how to seek help. And before immediately labeling a student lazy or unmotivated because something goes wrong early, ask whether there may be a barrier or a transition issue that needs to be addressed. For mentors, ask practical questions. How are you keeping up with your assignments? What's your system for your schedule? What responsibility are you owning this year? Those questions can reinforce the habits families and educators are trying to build. Before we close, I want to give you the Back to School Family Systems Challenge. There are 5 questions. First, what time are we going to sleep and wake up? Second, how will we keep track of school activities, transportation, and responsibilities? That may include family calendar or the scholar's planner. Third, what are our expectations for devices, schoolwork, and home responsibilities? Fourth, what will the scholar own this year? And fifth, how will we communicate when something starts going wrong? Then choose one system to practice before the first school day. Maybe it's the evening reset. Maybe it's the morning launch. Maybe it's checking the planner or using the family calendar. You don't have to redesign your entire household overnight. One system practiced consistently is better than 10 systems you abandon after 3 days. Before we close, let's review the 5 main ideas. The first main idea is that the school year starts before the first school day. The second main idea is that expectations should be discussed before problems happen. The third main idea is that we need to build basic routines before the motivation wears off. Remember the 3 basic routines: the sleep-wake reset, the evening reset, and the morning launch. The 4th main idea is that communication is part of the back-to-school system. And the 5th main idea is that back-to-school preparation should build scholar ownership. Parents prepare with scholars, not simply for scholars. Because ultimately, the system should help the young person become more capable, more responsible, and more prepared to manage themselves. The backpack matters. The supplies matter. The schedule matters. But the strongest back-to-school preparation is not something you buy. It's the structure you build. And that structure doesn't have to be perfect, but it needs to be clear enough to use, flexible enough to adjust, and strong enough to help the scholar continue developing discipline, habits, responsibility, and ownership. On the next episode, we're going to talk about how the first 2 weeks matter. We spent this episode building the system before school starts. In the next episode, we're going to look at what happens once school actually begins. We'll talk about attendance, effort, organization, relationships, routines, and what parents and scholars should be paying attention to during the first couple of weeks of school. Because we've built the system, now we need to see how the system actually performs when school starts. Until then, don't forget to complete the Back to School Family System Challenge and choose one system your family can begin practicing. If you found value in this episode, please like, follow, rate the show, write a review, and share this episode with a parent, scholar, educator, mentor, or somebody else who could benefit from this conversation. All right, I'll see you on the next episode. Until then, keep raising them.